Karunanidhi started saying that Rama was an Aryan, Ravan was a Dravidian king. He didn't know that Ravan was born in the outskirts of Delhi in a place called Noida, in a village called Basarak. You can go there, even today there will be a board here, there. That we, in Hindi, that we don't celebrate Diwali because we are children of Ravan. Ravan went to Mansarovar, prayed there to Lord Shiva. Shiva gave him a boon. And then he said, which can I conquer? And he found that his cousin Guber had developed Sri Lanka. So he came to Sri Lanka and became king. Karunanidhi for a long time thought this is a Dravidian king. Finally, with my interaction, he gave up the idea. But he is still very sore about Lord Rama. And he is more sore with me because I prevented him from breaking Rama Setu. The new government has now declared that we will not touch Rama Setu and make it into a national ancient monument. When I was arguing in Supreme Court, he said, who is Swami to call this Ram Setu? Was Ram an engineer? Which engineering college he got a degree from? But then Rama took revenge. Next day he fell ill. And he was admitted to hospital. And the hospital's name was Ramachandra Medical Hospital. All this was fed into your brain that we are different, we are not one nation, the British put us together. This weakens us. We must have a mindset of being the Indian. And I can tell you that the DNA studies show in the Journal of Genetics that all Indians have the same DNA. I proved it in the case of Raj Thackeray also, that his DNA and the UP taxi driver's DNA is the same. Hindus and Muslims also have the same DNA. The mullahs don't like my saying this because it means that their ancestors are Hindus. Otherwise, how can they have the same DNA as us? And I say to the Muslim, if you openly admit that your ancestors are Hindus, then we become part of the same family. You can have your own upasana paddhati, that is, you can worship, you can pray to Muhammad. We will not stop because Hindus have a tradition. We have never persecuted any religious minorities. When the Parsis came, we looked after them. When the Jews came, we looked after them. When the Syrian Christians came, we looked after them. Even the Arab trader Muslims came to Kerala, we looked after them and got them married to our families. And they came to be called Mapillai, which the Englishman called as Mopla. We also believe that all religions lead to God. Not necessarily with the same efficiency and speed. You can go from Bangalore to Bangalore by road and you can also fly to Bangalore. We think that ours is the most efficient religion in reaching you to God. But we also accept that all religions lead to God. Is there any other religion in the world today which has not come out of the Hinduism like Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism? A religion founded elsewhere, whether it's Islam or whether it's Christianity, which says that all religions lead to God. Only Hindu religion says that. So therefore, there is no issue. We think that this is a country with a Hindu tradition. They say, no, but Islam has also contributed. Christianity has also contributed. I say, it's true. But as Ganga flows, many rivers join it, but its name remains to the end as Ganga and nothing else. So I am saying today, if you want to fight terrorism, you have to develop this oneness that we are the same. Brahmins and scheduled castes also have the same DNA. Given equal opportunity to scheduled caste, he will be as good as anybody else. Dr. Ambedkar was scheduled caste. He went to his teacher was a Brahmin. He told him, with the name Bhimrao Mahar, you will never get anywhere. So you take my name, which was Ambedkar. So he became Bhimrao Ambedkar. He was so good that he got a scholarship to Columbia University in economics. He went and wrote a PhD there, which is one of the best PhDs of that time on monetary economics. Then he went to London and got the law degree. Then he came to India, and then the Constituent Assembly was the chairman of the drafting committee and helped pass the Constitution of India. And congressmen always called him Bhimrao. But they called Jawaharlal Nehru Pandit. Jawaharlal Nehru went to Cambridge and failed there. All members of the Nehru family have failed. Some of them falsely claimed to have passed. How can you call Jawaharlal Nehru Pandit and Ambedkar Bhimrao? In fact, you should call Bhimrao Ambedkar as Pandit and Jawaharlal Nehru as Jawaharlal only. But we have, these prejudices have been pinned into our mind, which divides us. For years they were winning elections by dividing Hindus and uniting Muslims and other minorities. This is the first time we united the Hindus and divided the Muslims. We couldn't unite all the Hindus, because the Hindus are 80%, we united only 32%. Then the Shias voted for us, the Bohras voted for us, the Khojas voted for us, the Ahmadiyas voted for us. Even amongst the Sunnis, the Barelvi Sunnis voted for us. Only the Wahhabi Sunni didn't vote for us. And with 37%, we got absolute majority. Tomorrow, more Hindus unite, and we reach 44%, we'll get 2/3 majority. So now they're saying, oh, this is Hindu consolidation. When you are consolidating the minorities, you didn't feel it was wrong. Now I'm consolidating the majorities. How can you take umbrage at it? This unity is essential for survival. There is a civilization threat today in the terrorists that you are facing. We have to look for allies now, because you've got to fight it. The Americans want us to help them in the ISIS, fight against the ISIS. Americans are very practical people. I've lived amongst them for many, many years, first as a student and then as a professor. They are only give and take people. You want to take something, then you give something. If you ever take something from them without giving them anything, they will then cheat you somewhere. That's their mentality. And then they go on doing cost-benefit analysis. When it becomes clear that the cost is more than benefit, they will dump you. So Vietnam, they dumped and ran away. Iraq also, they left and went away. Now again, the cost-benefit analysis turned around with the ISIS coming, so they have come back. Afghanistan, they wanted to leave. If Afghanistan leaves, who's going to take it over? The Taliban, which is part of the ISIS. They'll take over Pakistan also. Then this whole region becomes Taliban on our border. So we need the American friends, no question about it. But then this problem is there. They'll do cost-benefit analysis all the time. They want us, they'll put us up in the front and they will stay at the back. We need other friends who will fight with us. One such friend is Israel. Israel doesn't have manpower, but it has used its brains in such a way That this is what I call his mindset. And Jews, by the way, were like cows and cattle, totally pacifist. In Germany, they went to the gas chambers like dumb animals. It is then they decided, their leadership, new leadership decided, never again, never again we will be in this position. And they got a barren land, they converted it, and they made it into a powerful nation. Anyone touches them, they give 10 times more. You must be seeing from the newspapers that now there is no report of Pakistan firing across the border. You know why? Narendra Modi said, if they shoot once, you shoot 10 times. If they shoot with mortars, you shoot with artillery. And if they come with artillery, use rockets. After that, Pakistan said, please stop it now. We had enough. There is total silence on the border today. Of course, they will not change. They will start again. The best way to treat Pakistan is somehow, it's not an easy job, but it's somehow, and I believe it can be done, to enter into a pact with China. Why? Because China is facing the same problem as we are from terrorists from Pakistan. They're coming to Xinjiang and creating havoc there. So therefore, there are a lot of people who don't want India and China to get together. In the media, this all played up. We are capable of taking, if China makes an incursion, we are capable of taking. Tomorrow China crosses, China has never crossed the McMahon line after 1986. Because we can beat them. Twice we beat them, but we didn't publicize it because then it will become a prestige issue. And McMahon line may have been drawn by the British, but the Chinese have made the mistake of signing a border treaty with Burma, which is called Myanmar today, where they have stated in the agreement that China accepts McMahon line as the border between Myanmar and China. Because when McMahon drew the line, he drew it for Burma. Burma was part of India at that time, talking about 1935. Or rather, we are talking about 1912. And in 1935, it was further confirmed. So if China has accepted McMahon line with Burma, they won't have any face to tell us that we won't accept it for the rest of India. But this area, Aksai Chin, was never demarcated, thanks to Nehru's foolishness. Nehru's done so many foolishness. Kashmir, the king signed the instrument of accession, thanks to Sardar Patel. The king came to Delhi saying that Pakistan has sent troops into Kashmir and they may take over Kashmir. So please help me. Till that time he was hesitating whether to go with Pakistan or with China, with India or stand alone. Sardar Patel said, here's a piece of paper, instrument of accession, sign it, I will do it. Otherwise go home. He said, you are a very cruel, rude man. He said, I'm not royalty, so I have not been taught in a convent school that you have. Sign on the dotted line or get out. That man signed. After that, according to the British House of Commons resolution on the Indian Independence Act, once the king signs, that's final, irrevocable. And by this method, Sardar Patel had cemented 500 kingdoms into India. Pakistan could get only 160. We got 500. And if those whom the British at that time declared as independent kingdoms had remained independent kingdoms, what India would have looked like today? But Jawaharlal Nehru very soon went rushing to the UN without listening to anybody, no cabinet decision. Jawaharlal Nehru never listened to anybody. Occasionally he used to listen to Edwina Mountbatten, but... And Edwina Mountbatten told him, you'll be international hero, Messiah of peace. This Messiah of peace, you would be surprised to know that the Americans kicked out communist China. The Chiang Kai-shek China, Mao Zedong came, threw him out. In 1945, when Chiang Kai-shek was in power, they made him the fifth veto-holding power in the United Nations Security Council. In 1949, they threw them out. And John Foster Dulles wrote to Jawaharlal Nehru, this seat is India's, and you are welcome to occupy it. We would have been the fifth country in place of China if Jawaharlal Nehru had accepted. But Jawaharlal Nehru, Messiah of world peace, said, no, this seat belongs to China. And I shall be advocating that. For year after year, India, we used to move a resolution saying that the seat of Taiwan or Chiang Kai-shek's China should be given to the People's Republic of China. And finally, Nixon did it in 1972. Look at what is this mindset? That where you do not think that securing your borders, your nation is paramount. That is why I am saying this mindset has to come. The mindset can only come if first you resolutely accept that this country is a land of Hindus and those others who acknowledge that their ancestors are Hindus. That is my identity.